basically, I normally start with some statistics. I normally start with some information, some studies that a lot of research bodies have done. And the first statistic, we're talking here today about basically finding the next business idea or the next career venture or the next entrepreneurship idea that you want to be starting, and how you're going to be cooperating, escaping corporate and starting that venture basically, and what could be blocking you from doing that. So let's start first with talking about satisfaction. How is the satisfaction level today in your career? Whether you are self-employed or whether you are working for a company, how is the level of satisfaction? So the research has shown, ladies and gentlemen, through a study that was done that was incorporating 885 respondents that were not self-employed and about 250 that were actually self-employed. And this research has shown clearly that people who are self-employed are actually experiencing a higher level of satisfaction, In another longitudinal study that was conducted that incorporated 3,000 participants, what you see in this graph is it's a study from people who transferred or transitioned from being employed in a company to becoming self-employed. And that red line in the middle is the transition period. This is where the cutoff time, where you go from being self-employed to being employed to being self-employed, becoming self-employed. So what is that? And these are the number of years before you become self-employed. So what you see in terms of overall job satisfaction level, clearly you can see that being self-employed, when it comes to overall job satisfaction, scores higher level of satisfaction compared to the being employed in a company. And as you can see, the last 2 years before the transition to become self-employed, what ended up happening is the level of satisfaction started plummeting, and that could be related to job security. And let's find out if this is the case. So in the same study, they did a study on job security or satisfaction with job security. What turned out to be, which is a confirmation of the above, that when you were employed in a company all the way until you became self-employed, ladies and gentlemen, basically what ended up happening is that your level of security about your job started plummeting or started actually decreasing. So it could be an economic situation, or it could be any situation that would be causing that basically. And talking about level of satisfaction, now we're going to be talking about potentially the idea that you got to be creating. Is people actually able to find the right idea for their business? So in a study, again, that showed that 70% of tech startups fail within 20 months of raising funding and investment. It's not even 2 years. They won't even last for 2 years. And the main reason for that failure is that they are not able to find what the market or what the world needs. They're not able to find what the market or what the world needs. And now I'm going to be moving on to one of the best parts of the presentation where we get to talk together. And basically, I would like to start with asking you a question. And maybe you can share with me the answer in the chat. And the answer is just going to be in the form of a number right now. Do you want to transition your career from corporate to an entrepreneur? This is to gauge who are you, and if you are interested to actually move from becoming a corporate employee or an employee to become self-employed. So 1 will be no, you are happy where you are, and 10, you are definitely wanting to transition. So what would be the number that you could share with us on in the chat? If I can get you please to share with me, that would be great. Just to get some interaction to gauge who you are, right? So we have 7, 10. So far wanting to change. Enrico doesn't want to change. Good for you. Sophia, 6. We have 6, 8. So fairly high numbers there. Alba, 5. So kind of a still at both ends. Fabio, thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it. Now, the next question, ladies and gentlemen, is, do you have already a clear business idea? The ones who scored more than 5, do you have a clear business idea or an idea of what you want to be doing next? What would be that business venture that you want to be starting with? What would be the number where 1, you don't have an idea at all, and 10, you are extremely clear on what you want to do? What would be the number? So you have lower numbers here, which explains why you joined this webinar. Right. So we have Duma and Alex, you have scoring high. Right. Fabulous, fabulous. Now, a natural question here that can be asked is, what is the biggest barrier? What is the biggest barrier that will be stopping you, ladies and gentlemen, from implementing that business idea? So whether you want to leave a comment in the chat in the form of just a sentence, or if you want to basically unmute yourself, and I'm happy to pause the recording. So could you, if anyone wants to talk and share their experience, I'm happy to pause the recording. So I have the pandemic proof, job security and financial stability. Anyone? I can hear someone who unmute themselves.
Well, can I join? You don't have to delete the recording for me. I mean, you can do it for others, but I just wanted to make a quick comment. You know, in the market, I'm joining from Turkey, by the way, and our economy is very volatile. And in the volatile market conditions, it's very difficult. It's a very high risk to open a business. And but I'm considering learning about online and automated online trade systems where you have passive income. So I work as an English teacher in a private high school, but I don't want to abandon teaching altogether, but I need some sort of passive income because I'm 41 years old and I'm not planning to be a teacher when I'm 70 years old. I don't know if I will see that age, but I'm just saying.
But if you want to reduce the start, thank you for sharing that with us, Ozan. If you want to reduce the start and concentrate it into one sentence or few words, what would be the barrier that you feel is stopping you from going ahead and starting a business idea?
Well, my first barrier regarding the online business is the lack of know-how and lack of computerized systems, because my education was classic. I didn't have much to do with online training, so it's a lack of knowledge. To be honest, lack of know-how in that field. So I can't just become a software developer or a coding expert just after a couple of months training. So it has to be a long process for me. Or maybe digital marketing. I'm attending certain, webinars on digital marketing, and even that seems vague for me. Not really. I can press my hands on. Maybe I need to go through a process of learning and then go through trials and tribulations. But I'm not sure at this point. So I would give the number 1 in this, bar that you raised.
Right. Fair enough. Thank you so much for sharing that, Ozan. Anyone else would like to share?
Yeah, the problem of trying to get out of the comfort zone. That's the problem, actually.
Sorry, who's speaking? I can't see on the screen.
My name is Erkin.
Okay, right. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
And tell me what is the problem that you would face, the impediment?
Well, it's just like being in a comfortable zone. Like, so leaving your comfort zone is the biggest issue, because like at the moment I'm working like in a corporate. So whatever I do, like I have the safety of a job, and also like my income, my insurances. But if you just try to switch to your own business, this will be out of your way. So you'll need to just provide these for yourself and for your employees, or for your employees. So these are going to cause problems. And secondly, in my line of business, need a lot of equipment that are very expensive. So if I want to just like get into such a business, I will need to get have a lot of money to just like build up that kind of a business. So that's the second issue actually.
Fascinating. Thank you so much for.
Laurent, can I speak for a second? We have somebody who doesn't have a name, JF. We really don't like somebody without a name. Can you please put your name? If not, we're going to have to remove you.
May I speak, please?
Yes, go ahead.
What we are seeing and hearing from everyone, and I've been doing webinars for a while now, and I've been capturing a lot of data from the people who are attending the webinars in the format of a questionnaire, an online form, or whatever is the format. And we were able to narrow down 4 main blockages that were blocking people from actually transitioning their career from corporate to become an entrepreneur. The first blockage that we have, ladies and gentlemen, is the lack of clarity, which is one of the main reasons most of you here wanted to join this webinar, to understand how could you get more clarity in terms of what you're going to be doing next. What is the right career for you? And what is the right, what if you don't have that set of skills to achieve that, the next step for you? And how could you actually monetize that? Which brings me to the next one, which was brought up by Ozan, the skills. You don't have potentially the right skills. You don't know what you do in terms of dealing with the topic that you're going to be dealing with, whether it's a new business online and you never dealt with online. So there is a technical skills, there is all type of abstract and tangible skills that you may not have. And that could be completely legitimate. The other one is the judgment. And this one is just another layer lower. So when I'm working with people, with clients, whether in a one-off session or in actually a relationship coaching, basically, or like a coaching relationship together with them, a lot of the notions that they get to understand about what is blocking them is the judgment. The judgment after potential failing. So what ends up happening in people's mind, they end up constructing a path that potentially may happen or potentially may not happen. And that path is that negative path, which is that I'm gonna fail and people are gonna judge me, basically. So that's another one. And uncertainty. COVID, ladies and gentlemen, took uncertainty to a completely different level. So the definition of uncertainty with COVID took a different dimension right now, and also for fair reasons. So some people decide to lay low during the COVID time and not start a new business, where other peoples will be burning to pivot and start something completely new. And sometimes you also think about, you have too much competitive interest to lose. You might be having a family that you're caring for. You might have your financial commitment and all that kind of stuff. And that also come under the banner of uncertainty. Now, ladies and gentlemen, especially for the ones who doesn't know me yet, I want to share with you my story with experiencing career transition, career change, and dealing with risk, basically. Well, I was actually born into a war-ridden country where I had to deal with fear at a younger age, so to speak. But after I grew up, I wanted to become an international person. But that wasn't very simple or very feasible. But I ended up getting resourceful and I stepped out of my comfort zone and I moved to Australia at a younger age, and I wanted to remain in that country. I fell in love with that country. So that wasn't possible again. So I had to become resourceful again. And I had to do something that is not in line with my direction in my career. And that is studying to become a cook, because my direction was to become a businessman, basically. So until that moment, ladies and gentlemen, I was predominantly driven by fear in my life. I was running away, avoiding something, not running towards something, basically. So eventually I ended up staying in the country, and Australia became my new home, or my second home away from home, so to speak. And basically, I started my career in business, and I worked my way up until I got to a position where I was working with Toyota, and I've done that for a few years. In that space, ladies and gentlemen, I was under the influence of conditioning, social conditioning, that you have arrived. The definition of you have arrived with the people that were surrounding me at the time, the programming that I was receiving is that you are now employed in a stable job with a stable company, and you have a car, you have an apartment, that's it. This is what you want from life, so to speak. But then I got hit by this bug again of wanting to become an international person. But I didn't want to take the risk because I was, it was too much of a competitive interest for me to lose. So I ended up staying at Toyota for years and years until I got to a stage where the pain of remaining where I am, becoming so much so that I could not tolerate it. And this is when I stepped out of my comfort zone. I moved to Dubai and I started my first job with Louis Vuitton. They say, careful what you wish for. I wanted to become an international person. I ended up working with the company for 10 years in 3 countries. And my last assignment, I was the CFO of Louis Vuitton for South America, basically, based in Brazil. So at this stage, I thought that this is my maximum capacity. This is where I can get to maximum in my career and in my life. So might as well stay where I am. But again, I got hit by this, bug of wanting to become an entrepreneur. I wanted to see what's life is on the other side of corporate. Besides the fact that I was also experiencing midlife crisis as well. And I wanted to change environment, all kind of things that kind of fall together. But they say everything happened for a reason, no? So eventually what ended up happening, I stepped out of my comfort zone. And that took years. It wasn't a month or 2-month journey. But again, pain is what drove me for me to step out of my comfort zone. So what ended up happening is I ended up moving out of Brazil, coming back to Australia full circle. And today, for the last year, what I've been doing is working with professionals like me who wanted to transition their career. And I have developed a program to enable them to do that. So I work as a career reinvention coach, as well as a business coach dealing with enterprises and companies. But guess what? Today, where I am, I cannot claim that I have reached my dream. This is where I am. Because remember, in the graph that I showed you before, when it comes to level of satisfaction, or when it comes to job security for a self-employed, in the first 2-3 years, you're still going to be experiencing a bit of a stress and pressure on your business to make it actually happen and to make it survive, let alone during the COVID. And with this notion, I want to talk to you about entrepreneurship and some reality check about entrepreneurship, ladies and gentlemen. Did you know that every hour in the world, there is 11,000 entrepreneurs that are being initiated into this world? 11,000 every hour. And out of this 11,000, can you guess in percentage-wise, what's the percentage of the entrepreneurs that get to survive? Could you just leave a percentage in the chat for me? What would be the percentage of entrepreneurs that get to survive? Anyone can give me a percentage? 0.1, 10, 1, 7, 2, 3. Great. Thank you. Well, actually, some of you were right. Actually, 1%. Globally, 1%. In the United States, 3%, actually. That's based on the actual statistics. But guess what? That's the 11,000 that took the leap of faith. There is a lot more of them that didn't even take that leap of faith. Because another research done by the European Union, ladies and gentlemen, it shows that actually 40% of people who are considering entrepreneurship, they don't actually go ahead and do that because of the fear of failure. Now, if you break down fear of failure, that's what you get. And the biggest driver behind the fear of failure, ladies and gentlemen, is the financial fears. The second one is the career fear. Like, I want to be stuffing up my career. I don't know what I'm going to be doing if that notion doesn't work out. And what ends up happening, and I see this with a lot of my clients, they have 1 step forward and 2 steps back, where you're not investing yourself completely into this experience. And now I want to actually play with you a very, very interesting game. And this game was actually designed by Daniel Kahneman, who wrote the book, Thinking Fast and Slow. And he won a lot of awards over that, obviously. So the game is going to be as follows. You ready to play a game? So basically, I'm going to be giving you two options. And this game is designed to help you understand how much of a risk tolerant you are for you to be cut out to be an entrepreneur. So option one, I'm going to be tossing a coin. And if I toss a coin and you get tail, you get to lose $50,000. And if you get head, you get to win $1 million. So think about it for a second. Option one, you get to lose, if you get head, you get to lose $50,000. If you get tail, you get to win $1 million. And the chances is 50-50. Option two, simply you just walk away with an amount of money. No question asked, no argument whatsoever. Now, what would be the amount of money that you're willing to walk away with if you are willing to walk away with money? Is it $50,000? Is it $150,000? Is it perhaps $250,000? And so on and so forth. What would be the amount that would satisfy you to walk away? And that would determine not only your level of tolerance towards risk, but also determine how much, if you are going to actually be employed, how much people need to pay you for you to be employed. If you walk away with $150,000, you might as well go find a job that could potentially pay you that much eventually, if not immediately. And that would be the right space for you, because someone needs to still work for corporate. Someone needs to still do the job over there. And I just wanted to share with you this exercise predominantly as a reality check. So something for you to think about. Now, here comes the coolest part, or one of the coolest parts in this webinar, where I get to actually introduce Peter. So Peter, I call him the Superman of lean startup, the Superman of idea validation and you know, supporting startups company for actually scaling. And he's been doing this for years and years and years and years. But who would be a better person to talk about Peter other than Peter himself? So Peter, are you there?
I sure am. I was gonna go get my cape, but it's in the other room. I was also gonna get that over there on the wall. That's a logo that my daughter drew, and it kind of looks like I've got a cape, but not really. I should go get it. I'll go get it. Why not? Hey.
Yeah, sure, man.
This is my company logo according to my 10-year-old daughter. It's like it's like me doing business apparently. I don't know why we're wearing hats, but we're wearing hats. That's kind of how you do it in Canada, I guess.
Missing this cape. So Peter, thank you so much for showing up today, and you know, for allowing your time to share with the audience over here and your experience. You will be talking more about your experience, but just to share with everyone, you've worked with many interesting companies out there, and you help them to scale, and you've been doing this for at least 25 years from my recollection, right? So and one thing that you shared with me, that from your recollection, you don't even remember when is the last time you got a paycheck from someone in terms of employed. So I'll hand it over to you, the mic right now, and I will be supporting you with the presentation.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. And what a pleasure. This is very cool. So I know that you know, I saw that everyone's from a bunch of different places on the planet, not many from my time zone and I guess west of me. But absolutely a pleasure to speak with you all today. And what an honor to follow a rock star like Laurent. So and I pronounce that like in French because I'm Canadian and we pronounce everything in French, even if it's in English. That's not entirely true, but anyway, we'll roll with it. So here's me. This is kind of the corporate bio thing about me. So go ahead and read it if you feel like it. If you don't, that's fine. I've been, as Laurent mentioned, doing what I do in various different capacities, and I'm going to take you through a bit of a roadmap in a second. For about 30 years. So yes, that does make me old-ish, older. I don't know what it is. So lots of different pieces of experience, nowhere near as eclectic as Laurent, although I did want to work in a restaurant at one point in time. There was someone on this call that said BC is really nice, British Columbia in Canada. I lived in Vancouver for a while, and I thought, you know, I'd had it with the white collar corporate world, and I was just going to become a waiter and serve tables and just like not having to have any responsibilities whatsoever. Well, I didn't want to lie on my resume, so I never got a job, and I ended up getting a consulting job instead in Vancouver. Stayed there for 14 years. My daughter was born there, and now back in Toronto again. So nowhere near as much globe trotting as Laurent. I spent some time in San Diego, which is a really nice place. He was in Southern California. Have worked with lots of European clients, and also with a lot of startups. So lots of startup in my kind of going in parallel over the last, say, 10, 12 years. Lots of really big corporate experience in innovation and change, and lots of startup experience. So really just single founder startups, you know, probably much like you guys, have an idea, want to see if it's got legs, want to see what the market is, but don't want to launch it first to find that out the hard way. I've done that, which you're going to see in a second in the next slide, which we can go to now, if you like, please, sir. Thank you kindly. So here it is, my path. So Laurent is correct. The last time I saw a paycheck, I don't even remember. I had to go like searching for pictures. I'm like, what does a paycheck look like? I don't really know what a paycheck looks like. So there it is. I found one, or at least a pay stub. You know, pension. Like, what is this thing called pension? I don't know what that is. So the last time I saw one of these things was in 1995. So that's the last time that I was employed by somebody else. So just like really quickly going through my background, I had basically an informal MBA in 1998. So what ended up happening was in 1995, I became an independent consultant, and I have a software background. So I was doing systems consulting work, like actual kind of programming or things related to programming for larger companies. So in 1998, I started my own consulting company. And it didn't grow particularly large, but I had 5 employees at one point in time. And then unfortunately couldn't pay them anymore, which was an awful experience. And we ended up combining with another company, ended up with about 7 or so employees, maybe it was about 8. Both those companies failed at the end of the day, which was, again, an awful experience to be responsible for someone else's pay stub and not being able to deliver. So those were really formative experience of, you know, where is the market for our services? So what we did is we scaled up too quickly, and we'll talk about that in a few slides, or at least how to avoid that. So that's dangerous. I can't claim to have a magic formula for it. I don't know what that is. Like when you scale up, it's always going to be in context. So that kind of takes us up to 2000-ish. I did a bunch of consulting on my own after that because I was scared of hiring people. So did that for a good 10 years. Came back to Toronto. I was born and raised in Toronto. And then started doing way more startups. I did some volunteer work with a venture capital fund. And then alongside that, as I mentioned earlier, I was doing management consulting for larger corporations, kind of all at the same time. I'd do, you know, some coaching with a startup. I'd go do some mentorship at an accelerator, and I'd be doing a change initiative at a bank at the same time. So all that kind of leads me to where I am now, which really is a complete work in progress. So to say that I've landed or anything is particularly landed, I definitely do what I do and I love doing it. And I think I'm the best version of myself when I am a coach, when I'm coaching people to achieve something greater than they would have on their own, or at least kind of open them up to some possibilities. That's a thrilling and exciting thing. And I know Laurent, you know, would say the same thing. But all that to say, you know, I'm writing a book and I want to hopefully do a bit of a stand-up comedy routine for the corporate world. That's kind of where I want to go next. Is there a market for that? I'm in the process of figuring that out. So all that to say, lots of different changes, albeit not as geographically diverse, but yeah, lots of different things on my path. So if we flip ahead now, so next slide, thank you, sir. We're going to get into kind of the meat of what we're going to talk about, which is ideas, because that's why you signed up. You're like, yeah, an idea. I want an idea. Well, I got news for you. Ideas, and this guy here, who probably had many, definitely had many, and many that affect our lives today. Ideas at the end of the day turn out to be a commodity. They're easier to come up with than you think. So I want to, if we go to the next slide here, I want to start to dive into that idea about ideas and what's hard about an idea. It's actually not finding them. It's finding the problem that they solve. That's the hard part. That's really where we should be focusing, is not necessarily the next great idea, but the next problem to solve. So there was somebody who was talking about coaching. Yeah, I mean, when I first started out coaching, it's difficult and intimidating to get a lot of clients because you need a lot of clients. But what I would say is if you can focus on the problem that people need solving, the job that they're asking your coaching to be done for them, which is a weird way to think about it, but an effective one. And that's what these two pictures are all about. If you focus on that, then the rest of it is really going to take care of itself. How you market, what your website looks like, your logo, like all this other stuff, as opposed to starting with the logo. That's really just going to be an experiment, and that experiment might not work, and it's going to cost you a lot of money. All that to say, what you guys are going to see is some cheaper kind of experimental ways to test these things out. So I quite like this quote, Ted Levitt. Oh, that's okay. You can keep going or not. So yeah, it's a matter of, like, if you think about buying a drill, like, no one wants a drill. They just want a hole. Like, you want a hole in the wall. You don't want a drill. You would get the hole in the wall in any way possible. You really could care less if it's a drill. So that's really kind of the main point. And again, that comes back to the problem that needs solving. And that's a key. So, if we think about ideation, which, we mentioned in the description of this talk, that's really not the big thing. The big thing is something that I call problemation. So that's what we're going to get into some techniques of, and I'm just going to give you a couple and quickly, because I want us to get to the coaching part of this, which is the good part. So if we go ahead here, please, kind sir, thank you. What I'm going to show you first is a global trends technique to problemating. So this is finding problems. We're not trying to find ideas. We're trying to find problems. So there's a gentleman by the name of Peter Senge. He's written a whole bunch of books, famous systems thinker. He's a prof at MIT. And he said that, excuse me, today's problems are often yesterday's solutions. So if you play that forward, what that means is today's solutions are going to generate tomorrow's problems. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and figure out what those problems are or are going to be. So if we flip ahead one slide, there we go. Yeah, just one click. Thank you. Here's an example of how you might do that. So one of the things you can do is start to think about the different dimensions that kind of exist in the world. There are political ones, economic, social, technological, environmental. You could come up with any number of other ones. And within those, what you can do is start to think about what are the current trends or what are the solutions that exist within these different dimensions. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to walk you through an example of work from home. So that's certainly something that is happening a heck of a lot these days. Look at what we're doing right now. So if we flip ahead here and we start to think about work from home. Okay, work from home. Like what? So what work from home? What does that create as a problem? Well, I don't know about you guys, but certainly for me, some professional stagnation. I've got nobody around except for these 4 walls and the logo that was on the wall. And then my kids walking in here every once in a while, but they don't really know management consulting. I wish they did. Those would be good employees. Anyway, some loneliness because I'm isolated in this white room all day long. Inactivity, excuse me. So, do I ever get out of this white room? My bandwidth isn't the best, et cetera, et cetera. You could come up with any number of different problems. So now what I'm going to do is focus in on inactivity. So if we go to the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about another technique called problem reframing. So a lot of this stuff that I'm talking about, and especially this, comes a little bit from design thinking, and we're going to dive in very quickly and at a very high level to design thinking and its technique to help you validate. So let's say that the problem that we've identified is that people are inactive because they're working from home. So just really quickly, if you guys want to drop some stuff in the chat, that's fine. What are some solutions to that problem? Just 1 or 2. So we've got a problem, and the problem is people are inactive because they're working from home. I'll just give it a second here. All right, that's okay. So let's go ahead and display a couple of solutions. Yep, there's one. So I don't know, they're inactive. So, and these are just ideas directly off the top of my head. That's not like this is an amazing idea. Yeah, okay, and those are very good. Excellent. Beautiful. Yes, love them. So I don't know, any of those, give them a treadmill, subscribing to at-home workouts, whatever it might be. So now let's go to the next slide. And let's take a look at reframing this question. Oh, sorry. So before we do that, this quote, which I'm sure you've seen before, if I'd asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses, is really, to me, an expression of reframing. So so Ford knew that he was going to get a horses question because that's what their focus was. It was like, I only have horses. So instead, what I think this quote means is he needed to instead go back to the problem. Like, the problem is I need to get from point A to point B faster. I need to whatever, do a bunch of errands, whatever in the world you needed to do before cars existed. So he was really reframing a problem for these people, and that's what we're going to do in this next slide. If I may, please, kind sir. Thank you. How about this? So let's say that we asked a bunch of people. I'm not saying I have. Let's say we asked a bunch of people, and what we found out is that, you know what the actual problem is? People are demotivated because they're working from home. Yeah, sure, it shows up as inactivity, but if we start to unpeel that onion, what we're finding is that they're demotivated. And I'm just using this as an example. I'm not saying this is actually the root, but let's just say as we unpeel, we discover this. So now what are our solutions? Let's maybe just play this one forward. Okay, so now we're talking about demotivation before we were talking about activity. So maybe now, and you guys even identified it in the chat, maybe there's some mental health stuff going on here when I think demotivation. And maybe where you land is setting up an accountability buddy system. Let's just say that's where you land. So let's play forward another one, please. So now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the design thinking process. And I'm not going to get into depth here, so apologies if this is a whirlwind tour. We don't have a ton of time. But certainly if you want more information on this, feel free to contact me, and I'm happy to get into depth here. This is just one way to start to validate an idea, or a problem. So let's say that our problem is we started with a problem that people are inactive because they're working from home. So what this process tells us, and you'll notice ideate is in the middle. It's not at the start. It's not about the idea. It's about the problem. So now if we play this forward, what you might find by talking to people is that the problem is a little bit different. So there's a bunch of tools out there. I've just displayed one of them, an empathy map, and it really encourages you to think about the people who are saying they have the problem or the people that you experience having the problem. Really dive in and understand for each type of person, what are they saying? What are they thinking? What do they do? What do they feel? What are their needs? What do they like? And if you do that and you kind of asking them really direct questions about the problem, which you may need to do as well, if you understand what they're like, you may very well uncover a different frame for the problem, which is exactly what, you know, I'm saying we would have done in this example. So if we play this forward, now we're in to our reframe. So let's say we talked to these people, we gained some empathy for them, and we discovered, oh, you know what? These people are demotivated because they're working from home. Aha, now I get it. I get the problem. So if we play this one forward, now we're in the ideate zone. So now we've got a problem that we know is worth ideating for. That's the key. So there are a bunch of different techniques to do that ideation. The one I've shown here is again related to design thinking, and it's called Crazy Eights. And what it does is it just basically allows you to draw different ideas rapid fire out of your head, 8 of them at 1 minute each. Then you do a quick solution sketch. So this is maybe an interface of an app or a product or whatever it might be. A service, you know, you could even draw delivering a service, and you can do this either on your own or in groups. So this is just an ideation method, lots of them out there. So if we play forward one more, again, using this design thinking methodology of these 5 different areas, and if we play forward one more, what you can get yourself to is a prototype pretty quickly. There's lots of tools out there to do really simple prototypes that look exactly like this phone. And you can actually have them on a phone. So you can actually have people download them on a phone. The way that design thinking works, or a design sprint works, is you end up presenting this prototype to some small number of people and learning while they use it. And in a design sprint, it's 5 people, and you can get a lot of signal. There's a reason why it's 5 people. There's tons of research out there that would say that you get good signal to learn, not to iterate once and come up with the perfect app or the perfect solution, but to go one more cycle through and learn. So you're learning in really small pieces. Oops, sorry, that's my timer telling me that I am running out of time. So in this particular example, let's say that you came up with a prototype and it was, you know, to find workout buddies. So you could put that in front of 5 people and really learn a lot of good things. So it looks like there's some people familiar with design thinking. That's excellent. We're going to talk now, flipping ahead a slide, about some more lean startup style validation methods. So where design thinking is all about a particular idea and prototyping it coming from a problem, lean startup is as well. And really the reason why this picture exists is to really emphasize the point of, it's great to have a plan. You know, it's great to have an idea, but when that idea meets the real world or gets punched in the face, you just don't know what you're going to do next. So the point is, start small, be willing to learn in the smallest possible learning increments. And as you get punched, you know, it's not going to kill you. So you're learning in little tiny pieces very, very frequently, as opposed to learning in big pieces, because those cost a lot of money and a lot of time. And ideally, as an entrepreneur, those are the things you have, you have the least of, so you want to use the least of. Okay, so if we skip ahead one, this is a little bit more kind of lean startup like, as opposed to design thinking like. And another way, and these 2 methods can be glued together. It's a way to start to validate other aspects, not just is this thing usable? Is it worth? Do people care at all? Now you start to get into, what's the business model? Like, what channels am I going to advertise through? You know, which different target customers do I have? Do I need partners to deliver these things? You know, what's my unique value proposition? All these different aspects. What are my costs? What are my revenues? All these different aspects of your actual business model can be and should be experimented with, because it might not just be your product. It might be the channels through which you end up communicating to customers that are the riskiest thing in your particular business model. It might be a partner that you have. It's not just the actual product. And that's really where lean startup starts to fit in, is this notion of business model and putting your product inside of a business model. And identifying the riskiest things in that business model. Like, what are the things that are going to kill your business the most? Test that first in the cheapest possible way. So that means you've got to know what an assumption is and when you're making one, which is hard to do. And you've got to be able to prioritize those assumptions. And then you go ahead and you test them in priority order, one by one. And again, miniature little learning increments. That's really what this is all about. Okay, so if we flip to the next one, not that this is going to be Shark Tank, but if you go to my LinkedIn, you'll see that there's a video posted on there when I was actually on a Shark Tank-like show on this community cable channel that no one ever watched. If you want to have a good laugh, go ahead and watch that. It's only mildly embarrassing, although I do keep it there for a laugh. So by all means. So here's what I'm going to offer is, well, I don't know. I want to check in first of all with the organizers. We're running up against it. Do we have time for this or no?
Yeah, we're just going to be, you know, we can go for a quick case if someone has something ready to share. So you can, by all means, support them with ideation, basically, if someone has anything readily available to share.
Yeah, like I noticed that there were a few people that had that question of, hey, do you have an idea already? Someone had a 9, someone had a 7, another person had a 7. I don't know if those folks would be willing to just kind of super quickly explain, what's the idea, and then I'll just help you to identify some assumptions related to it.
Anyone there who wants to volunteer for sharing an idea or who have an idea for a business that wants to consult with them and be coached by Peter?
I can do that. My
Sure.
name is Kama.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Kama.
Hi. I came up with a recipe for the chocolate.
Are you okay with us recording you, my darling?
Oh, yes, that's fine. Yeah, and I want to launch my own chocolate brand.
For sharing all this information with us, I would think, I'm sure a lot of us learned a lot during this experience. That was really, really great. So, and we get to have some space at the end, ladies and gentlemen. Just stick around until the end, because there's not only the giveaway, you get to have the chance to actually interact with us for Q&As. There's a couple of more slides, and then we can move to the last phase. So I want to circle back on the notions that we spoke about earlier, which is what has been blocking you from you transitioning your career or transitioning into becoming an entrepreneur, whether transitioning your career to still be employed or whether transitioning your career to become an entrepreneur. What has been blocking you? And now we're going to be circling back and unpacking this a bit more. The first one, we spoke about clarity. There are many tools out there, and Peter was kind enough to share with us a few of them of how you can create some ideas. But again, the point is not about the idea, is the problem that you are solving. Talking about problem that you are solving, a tool that I have been using and Peter had been using for a while now is the Ikigai, which is a Venn diagram that has 4 circles, and the interaction or the intersection of the 4 circles makes up the Ikigai, which is the purpose for being. So the first circle is what you love, what you are good at, what you can get paid for, and what the world needs. And with this work, you will be able to create a map that will make up the map of your skills, your talents, your passion, your values, as well as what the world needs. And you can combine all of them together. And that will make up a kind of a compass at least to either confirm an already idea that you have, like the chocolate example, or to enable the creation of a new idea. So there is many tools and many ways out there for you to get clarity, but you're gonna follow your curiosity and keep pushing forward. Skills. Every one of you is sitting without exception. Every one of you is sitting on a mountain of talent that can be monetized and commercialized. And this is a reality. You know, when I work with clients and I go, so what are you good at? And then I ask, can you get paid for that? And most of the time, they realize that they can get paid from things that they do related to their current job or to their current, employment that they have. So always you got to be thinking, what problem are you solving? And how could you use your own skills, talent, passion, and values to be able to resolve these problems? And that's how you can start building on the skill. And then the other thing, which is most important, if you know you're gonna become an entrepreneur and you know what is the skill that is missing, you gotta go ahead and invest yourself into building that skill. So whether you wanna become a speaker, or whether you wanna become a businessman, or whatever is your case, you get to go ahead and invest yourself, especially if you are employed right now. You need to invest yourself on your own skills and building your skills. Judgment. Judgment is obviously the source of the judgment is your negative belief system. And the negative belief system is coming from a belief that resulted from an event that happened to you, a narrative, which is, as a result of that event that happened to you once upon a time in your life. And that shows up in your inner critic or your saboteur. And that causes the fear. So what ends up happening inside of your brain, you have what they call your neurons and your circuits of the interaction of neurons. And what ends up happening is that this saboteur is something that we have built over the years. That narrative that you have about yourself came from over the years. And for you to work on that, you need to understand the source of it, unpack it, deal with it, and learn how to reframe it. And it's just like an operating system, computer operating system. There is ways where you can hack into your brain and introduce positive habits that can enable you to reframe that thinking. The last one that I wanted to talk about is the uncertainty. One of the reasons people don't take too much risk is because the future is unknown. Isn't that interesting? Because of the future is unknown, people avoid themselves from taking risks. The COVID, you don't know what's going to happen around the corner after COVID. If things are going to get worse, if things are going to get better. So by creating a visualization of what could be the worst case scenario that could happen to you, this is no longer a black cloud, a massive cloud that you are dealing with. You are already unpacking and chunking down your fears. And you are able to identify what could go wrong. And by knowing that, you become familiar with the future that go down the path of the unfavorable events. And by knowing that, you start becoming familiar with it. Not only this, you start learning, well, how can I react from that point on if this happened? And when you start becoming familiar with that, eventually you will be saying, okay, well, maybe it's not too bad after all. When you chunk down, break down your fear, break down your uncertainty, start becoming more clear about what is it that could go wrong with me. And the main reason people procrastinate, as I mentioned here, is because the future is unknown. So make the future known to you, ladies and gentlemen. And now I want to also allow a quick space for anyone very quickly if they want to jump on, because we promised that, to a live coaching session about what could be actually blocking you, what could be potentially blocking you from moving forward. So the question is, if you want to volunteer for that, is saying what's your name and where you're connecting from, just quickly your favorite gadgets, just to kind of have an icebreaker. And what's the ideal move for you, whether it is to be an employee or whether to become an entrepreneur. And are you stuck where you are right now? And if you are stuck, what's in your mindset? What do you believe in your mindset? And this is more mindset focused that could be blocking you. Do we have any volunteers there?
Alex, are you still with us? Because you seem to kind of like have a limiting belief.
So I'm going to be now, if anyone's going to be volunteering, I'm going to be pausing the recording.
I can volunteer.
Okay, so just 1 second. Let me pause the recording. Ladies and gentlemen, sorry for taking too much of your time today. I mean, I hope that you got some value here, but just the last thing I wanted to say to you here is, by all means, we would love to connect with you, myself and Peter. Here is our details. If you have a phone, just use the camera and just scan these barcodes or send us emails or go to our website, and that's how you can find us. And Peter and myself is offering for the beautiful, beautiful crowd that we have today, the opportunity to connect with us through an offer. In my case, the first 3 emails that I get from this audience using this email and this subject will get a complimentary 45-minute coaching call with me. And generously, Peter is also sharing from his end. Maybe Peter, you want to unmute yourself and speak about your offer to everyone?
Sure. This is something that I use to coach entrepreneurs with. So folks who have an idea, are nervous about it, not quite sure if it's the right thing to do, not quite sure if it's, going to be able to support them. So it is, it's got no particular length to it. So we get to a particular endpoint, which if you go to my site, you'll there's a bit more of an explanation there. I'm actually going to be doing one of these packages starting tomorrow on Monday with an entrepreneur. So it's really validating that business model. So the chocolate concept that was graciously shared, that's a good example. So I've got an idea, and but how in the world do I turn it into a commercial entity? How do I turn it into a business? That's what this leads you to, is understanding of what that'll take.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Peter. I appreciate it. And I appreciate everyone for being here and showing up with us. It was amazing to experience your energy. If anyone have any question, we could allow just a couple of minutes for Q&As. If not, I think we will be wrapping up the session right now. Has anyone got any question out there for us?
I have a question, a very simple question. How do you move from uncertainty to assessing risk? Because it makes a big difference, but I'm never sure how you really can move from one to the other.
So the question is, how do you move from uncertainty to assessing risk?
Exactly, because uncertainty, you cannot really, it's in the nature of the animal. Mm-hmm. You do not evaluate, you do not assess uncertainty. Uncertainty is uncertainty. But risk, which is absolutely hugely related, can be assessed and measured. And I'm always, I haven't looked into that too much because I have projects which I left by the way. Anyway, doesn't matter. That's not the point.
I've got a quick answer to that, if you want it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So I come from a project management background way back when, somewhere on that road. And to use a project management frame for that, there's really 2 ways, 2 dimensions, and you can choose other dimensions if you want to assess risk. 1, how likely it is to happen. 2, how bad it'll be if it happens. So that's what I do when I work with entrepreneurs. We decide what the dimensions are, because they could be different for you, and then we decide, okay, well, how risky is that? Well, how bad is it that it's going to happen if it happens, and how likely is it that it might happen?
Another thing, Lily, I just wanted to add here, and that's a great question that you have asked. I always say to people that, the difference between a gold medalist and a silver medalist is just 1 second sometimes if you are talking about race or anything like in the Olympics. But really what makes that difference really is the structure that the person has, is the work that the person has done in the background, so to speak. And what ends up happening with a lot of people, they end up building the risk assumption in their mind without putting anything on paper or without doing any kind of a research. So they destroy their potential idea or dream in their mind before putting anything on paper or before doing any kind of research, sending any email or validating anything. So what you owe to yourself is if you have an idea and you have an uncertainty about an idea, what steps have you taken, regardless of which direction, to actually validate whether it's a valid or feasible or not feasible idea? Because movement creates momentum, and momentum creates traction, and traction creates progress. And that's how you start building momentum and progress. Because if you're sitting here saying that, look, I'm busy, I have this idea and there's too much risk behind it, but I'm busy with projects, I'm already hearing that there could be, you know, a kind of what's the word, resistance potentially to deal with this, right? And then you got to understand what's behind that resistance. And this is where you start your journey. But just making that one email, sending that one email to someone or asking the question, are you showing up on the webinar here? Congratulations for you, by the way, because you wanted to show up. And this is very important. So I hope that that kind of answers your question, hopefully, you know, and you have some clarity.
Thank you both very much.
Pleasure. Anyone else? Before we wrap up? Right. So one favor I want to ask from everyone, and please be kind to graciously accept that. I would love to, I'm going to be pausing the recording now.